It is 10:01. Good morning from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Tennessee Titans officially kick off training camp tomorrow as Mike Vrabel will meet with the media in the morning. The team made a few transactions over the weekend, including signing rookie corner Roger McCreary and quarterback Malik Willis, officially putting the entire 2022 draft class under contract. The team also waived safety Rodney Clemens and re-signed safety Joshua Kalu, who was with the team from 2018 to 2020. Kicker Caleb Shudak, tight end Tommy Hudson, and linebacker Monty Rice placed on the physically unable to perform list. Longtime 104.5 The Zone host Mark Howard passed away in his home on Sunday. Howard spent over 20 years with The Zone, 16 years hosting Wake Up Zone in the mornings. Howard was only 65 years old. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Been a while since I've been able to hang out with you guys. Good to be back. Full swing of things. Football season. We are ready, set, and waiting to go. Things will start up tomorrow. Players, everybody has to report, media included, for training camp to open, and then Wednesday practices will start. Lucas, are we out there the rest of the week?
We are out there starting Wednesday.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It'll be a great time. We'll be full go. We'll have all kinds of great guest opportunities out there at training camp, and I hope to see some of you guys as those things become available to, it sounds like a selection of people who will be able to attend, both season ticket holders and non-season ticket holders at training camp this year. 615-737-1045. That's how you jump in if you like. We'd love to have you, particularly on a day like today, because as I just heard Jason and Schaefer do for 4 hours this morning and certainly throughout the course of yesterday afternoon into the evening, the passing away of Mark Howard, who is, it seems, one of the most highly regarded people in our industry to do what it is that we got to do, that we get to do locally. Here's the thing, though, because I want to have a genuine conversation with you guys about this, because I know how much he means to a lot of you guys throughout the course of your life. I mean, 16 years is an eternity, an absolute eternity in this industry, where it is very, very difficult to last that long. And that's just the Zone. That's not including News Channel 5. For those of you who go back with Mark at the very start of his television career, which until yesterday I did not know was in my hometown of Evansville, Indiana. I had my uncle used to be a weatherman, and he reached out to me yesterday and said he was sorry to hear of Mark's passing, and that they used to work weekends together at Channel 13 in Evansville, Indiana. So, but I want to have a genuine conversation with you guys today in this way. I did not know Mark. I did 1 hour as a fill-in with Mark during the pandemic over Zoom. That was the extent of my interaction with the man. So I want to be able to give this 3 hours, this space that he and so many others, Kevin Ingram, who I heard this morning on with Jason, it was so great to hear from Kevin just because of how long those guys were around and built the station into what it is and kind of set the local sports scene every morning with you guys for as long as they did. But my experience with Mark, I had precious little. So we want to give you guys the opportunity at any point throughout the course of the show today to call in and to remember him. David Boclair of Sports Illustrated, who broke the unfortunate news of Mark's passing at the age of 65 yesterday. Boclair is going to be on with us, and we'll have Beau help us remember this man who was such a staple of the sports fabric and just the general community here in Middle Tennessee. So we're happy to have you throughout the course of the day to remember Mark Howard, who so many of you love and who was such a big part of a lot of people's lives. 615-737-1045. But with training camp coming up, there was a couple of different news items. I've been out. I mean, Lucas, I think I was off the day that you guys were doing Josh Heupel SEC Media Days, and when Caleb Farley, or rather when Kyler Murray's contract was announced, and I think Kirby Smart got a contract that same day. You had all kinds of news, bud.
Yeah, Preds signed Nino Niederreiter in that window, too. So,
Alex Daugherty is going to be here later to talk about that very signing.
10:45. But it was a very newsy Thursday and a newsy Friday. I think people had their head on a swivel for a Friday news dump this past week, but not that one.
Yeah, you thought it was going to be Watson.
Yeah.
It was not Deshaun Watson. So, amid all the different news items that I've missed in my last little bit of vacation before we get fully underway for football season, this part about the just generally the physically unable to perform list for the Titans. Training camp Wednesday, the practices will begin. We'll hear from a variety of different players. We're going to have a bunch on the show throughout the course of the next couple of months, basically, at this point, and how short the PUP list was for Tennessee was my biggest takeaway. Two in particular who I noticed not on the PUP list to start training camp. Caleb Farley, the former first-round pick, the corner who has been a bit of a curiosity, to put it, I mean, that's diplomatic. Any first-round pick who only appears in, 3 total games in his rookie season, and then only makes one start, and in the one start tears his ACL after coming in through the draft process with a lot of different physical concerns. Disappointing by any stretch of the imagination, even as it's kind of unfair to the player. Caleb Farley being full go, according to, just the fact that he's not on PUP. And Robert Woods, who is going to be such a fascinating piece to see how this fits with the offense, particularly in the absence of whatever we do or don't know about Treylon Burks, who we'll get to a little later on in the show. Another news item, our friend Diana Rossini was on the Athletics NFL podcast and talking about Treylon Burks and what she's been hearing. You'll hear a portion of that audio a little later in the show as well. But to see Caleb Farley and Robert Woods available, prepared to fully participate, that's a great sign. It's as close to a win as you can get in July. And for the purposes of what questions we still have about this roster and what we're going to see play out in front of us through position battles and competition and finding new ways to get the offense back up to par where we've seen it in 2019 and 2020, just generally more efficient, more fluid, more comfortable, less of a labor. That all starts this week. It's the process of building the football team, or it's more the culmination of it. It's seeing how all the parts and pieces start to fit together and how you can best make this thing work. So it's going to be really interesting to watch play out, since we'll be doing the show literally on the practice field, and I'll be able to tell you guys what's happening on any given day in basically real time. But Caleb Farley, the last we heard from him was, I think, right around mandatory minicamp in May, I do believe, and talking about June 7th, the first week in June, talking about just basically where he is at physically and what the process of this offseason coming off an injury has been like.
I have put on some weight. It's more about just being in good shape. Less important the weight and more about just being strong and in good shape and healthy.
How do you approach the offseason, knowing that this is a good opportunity for you to nail down a starting spot?
I'm just taking it day by day and enjoying the process and loving what I do and, trying to put everything I have into it to continue to gain the respect of my coaches, my teammates, the community, and just be thankful for my opportunity.
Where are you as far as a mental standpoint, as far as the confidence and the being able to cut and plan on it?
I'm extremely confident. I'm always confident, and I'm mentally better than I've ever been.
Caleb, do you have to fight at all, the why me, or why does this keep happening when it happened 2 years in a row?
I have thoughts like that. It's trials and tribulations come in many different forms, but I have a strong faith you know, I have a good close circle too that I lean on, and that helps me get a lot through a lot. Like I'm in a good mental space right now.
How did you get over?
Just leaning on my faith and keeping my family close, my circle, and just enjoying being around my teammates in the facility, being a part of something bigger than myself.
And is there a motivation now to finally be able to show exactly what you can do out here?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a competitor. I've always been a competitor. Anything I've, said I wanted to do, I still want to do, and I want to win and I want to dominate. So that's my mentality.
That's Caleb Farley speaking with media back in June about the process for him to get up to speed. Now, we'll be able to tell you on Wednesday when we all get out on the practice field whether there's a situation like he's got a medical jersey on, like the yellow practice jerseys that they have him out there if they're not fully prepared for contact. But until such time, it's fair to assume that both he and Robert Woods, who we'll spend a little more time on later in the show, are fully ready to go. And that's about as good a spot as you could hope for a football team and a football fan base. I don't got to tell you guys that health can absolutely not be taken for granted, which is about as good a transition as I can have for the conversation that we're getting ready to have coming up next. David Boclair of Sports Illustrated, longtime Nashville media member and the person who reported the passing of Mark Howard, is going to join us coming up next. And we're going to remember the man who made such an impact on so many people's lives, particularly here at this radio station. Your phone calls are welcome as well. 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone.
The Buck Rising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Welcome back on this Monday. Happy to have you here. David Boclair at Boclair Sports is where you can follow him. You know Beau, the man behind the matches. SI.com is where you can read all of his Titans coverage. He's been doing the damn thing since 1997, and he's here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Beau, I'm sorry that this is the first time we're having you on the radio show. I feel like this is a pretty offensive thing that I'm doing here today.
No worries, Buckaroo Banzai. It's good to be with you. I'm happy to have this opportunity today for sure. So
the opportunity, Beau broke the news yesterday with Mark Howard's passing away at the age of 65. Such a long time voice and face of sports in this city through, basically the evolution of this becoming a major sports town, Beau. And it'll surprise you none to know that Lucas and I have some blind spots when it comes to history. So we just wanted to listen along with the audience who this man was to you and what he meant to the city of Nashville and to sports fans here. Yeah, well, it's interesting. I listened to most of the morning show, and everything that was said there was true. In 2013, it just so happened Mark and I were both house hunting for townhomes at the same time, and ended up as neighbors, living almost directly across the street from one another. So that's actually how I got the news first, because I saw his family right away, and when the first responder vehicles pulled up to the house and whatnot. So Mark was when I think about Mark, there was sort of, at least in terms of the wake up zone, there was this Johnny Carson quality to him, and I say that from the perspective that Carson was legendary for making stand-up comics, right? When they would do a bit on his show and he would call them over to have a seat after their set, that was sort of his nod of approval, and it became a thing that, like I've heard Drew Carey tell the story. He got called over, and like the next day his phone was ringing off the hook with opportunities, right? Yeah. Mark understood the reach and the penetration and the influence that the Wake Up Zone had, and he was willing to use that to give media people in this market and even national people that he liked a push, and I'm one of those guys. I had been covering sports and had touched on damn near everything in this town to some point for 14 years, and by the time that I got a regular weekly 1-hour appearance on the Wake Up Zone, and I got more pop and more recognition and more everything based on being on that show than I ever did with writing more well over a decade before that, and there like I said, there are other people in this town who will tell you the same sort of thing, and it's funny to use the comic analogy too, because Mark loved comics. Zanies, when guys would come through Zanies, they'd promote their show on there, and he almost, I can remember one time Mark Maron was going to be on after my segment, and I swear Mark had listened to like 12 of Mark Maron's podcasts the day before and had pages worth of questions or topics to ask him, where like they could have done the whole show together. There was something about the comics that he really liked and enjoyed and thought they were an interesting part of the show too. David Boclair here with us on 104.5 The Zone. At Boclair Sports is where you can follow him. Beau, what you say there is such a fundamentally decent thing, because that's to run it through my own worldview. That's what 3HL has kind of been for me since I got to town and was looking for opportunities to kind of find ways. Just the station in general, Mickey, Blaine Bishop, everybody on the mornings in its current iteration, they've kind of given me this platform before I ended up working here. And to understand how rare a thing it is for somebody to be willing to promote other people in that way. Media is at least it seems to me, it can be such an insecure business in any way, shape, or form, whether it's talk radio or television or even journalism in some form or fashion, today, that for Mark to have that quality and to understand how important that was for people like you've just said yourself, or I read Kaharski's column on his website yesterday. It seemed that Paul had that same kind of resonance with those opportunities, and not many people do it that willingly and that intentionally.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing about him, people have talked about his humility. When it came to the show, he was really interesting, and I got a much better sense of this the last few years too, after we became neighbors, and I'd see him in the street or whatever, we would talk, because he like when the show was on the air, Mark did not think of himself as the star of the show. It was very much, he and Kevin and Frank or Blaine, whoever was there at the time, it was he wanted those guys to shine as brightly as he did and everything. But when it came to the show's success, thinking about it off the air and whatnot, he felt, I think, a disproportionate amount of responsibility. And I say that because, he lived and died with the ratings. I'd see him in the street. I would assume there's regular ebbs and flows a little bit in any radio show's ratings, but I'd pass him on the street and be like, "Oh, the ratings came out today. We're down 1/10 of a point or something," and it was just eating him up to where he would spend days trying to figure out what they could do to recover that 1/10 of a point and whatnot. I mean, he was just he was a perfectionist in that way, and you can certainly speak to this, Buck. There's no way to even know what a perfect radio show is, let alone do it. But he was he was certainly looking for that. And another thing I thought of, it's funny you mentioned the competitiveness of the media business, the sports media business. People probably don't remember when the Nashville City paper launched early in the 2000s somewhere. He wrote a weekly column in there, and I remember reading it and thinking, son of a gun, this guy's really good. If he wants to do this if he wants to transition to this at some point, he's going to take a spot from a guy like me, right? At some point, there's going to be one less columnist job available, because he was really good at that too, and if he wanted to, he certainly could have gone in that direction as well.
So for all the different iterations of his career and how long you've been in the same space and market and understanding who he was and what his impact was, the evolution of this of this city, Beau, as a sports city with the Titans and the Predators, now with Major League Soccer and kind of being a featured piece of the sports entertainment conversation year in and year out, with competitive teams and a market that really embraces them and embraces the ability to put on events around the teams. Mark, it would seem to me, having not quite the depth of knowledge that so many people in the audience do, it would seem to me that you cannot tell the history of Nashville as a sports city without the involvement of Mark Howard and the Wake Up Zone, and what that show meant to the day-to-day discourse for people who were looking to just hear about local teams.
Yeah, there's no question. A few years ago, when I was working at the Nashville Post, we would publish a quarterly magazine called The Power Issue that listed, the sort of the most powerful, most influential people in all sorts of industries around the city. And I remember at one point I made a big argument, and I had to push for it, but I thought it was a really easy argument to make, to include Mark on the list, because if you remember, there was a point in there was probably 6, 8, 10 years ago there, he had a several year run where, the Wake Up Zone was the runaway massive, it was one of the most listened to sports talk radio shows anywhere in the country. I think there were only 2 or 3 sports shows anywhere that had comparable ratings. Plus, he was a part of the Titans radio network, hosting the post game shows. Plus, he was on Predators television broadcast, doing the in between period stuff and the post game stuff with Terry Crisp. So you think about it, Mark Howard was the first voice you listened to, one of the first voices you listened to every morning to talk about sports. He was the first voice you listened to on Sunday after the Titans games. He was the first voice you listened to after Predators games. I mean, there was nobody in this town influencing the discussion about the pro sports teams anywhere comparable to Mark Howard in those days. And it was, I think he understood that and didn't take it lightly. It was just a remarkable run. And I heard Hope Hines this morning talking about it, and he talked about a certain, insecurity, I think that Mark, maybe it was Brad Willis said it, an insecurity that Mark had. And I, that was always there too. Like he didn't, I think he knew people were listening, but there was this little voice in the back of his head for some reason going, why am I the one they're listening to? It made for some really interesting conversations on the sidewalks in front of one of our houses or whatever here the last couple of years.
David Boclair here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Beau, everything's so, I mean, even just in the media environment since 2020, with how digitized everything became so rapidly and how many more podcasts and how decentralized listening habits and reading habits have become. Can there exist a person like Mark in a local media market that way anymore? Because I look at that and it's, I know George Plaster is regarded in these same kinds of conversations where it's crazy to me to imagine a world like that because of how much different the evolution of media is.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible. Maybe we're right on the edge where somebody could really blow up and take hold of something, but those days are fading fast without question. And it's the same thing that happened in my realm, the print world here, over the last 15, 20 years, where, it used to be you had to read the newspaper or that was it. And then all of a sudden everybody could have a website and there's so much more opportunity to find somebody you like, find what you would do. And, another point I wanted to make about Mark too, and people talk about how you had to be ready to argue with him, right? That yeah. He knew his stuff, knew his facts and whatnot. And it's interesting. He was a gift giver too. He liked to give gifts. I mean, his favorite gift to give was a book. Like at Christmas time, I got 3 or 4 books from him over the years or whatever. And it struck me as I was thinking about that because, a lot of guys in Mark's position and Mark's position of that type of influence, they would revel in being the smartest guy in the room and would want to be the smartest guy in the room. And I almost feel like Mark would give these gifts of books because he wanted you to read more on a subject. He wanted people to understand it the way he did. He didn't want to, as much as he was, he wanted to be the voice of authority on the air. He also wanted to have somebody he could discuss it with on the same level. Yeah. And he didn't want to just be, well, see, I'm the smartest guy, everybody else shut up. He wanted, it was fascinating that way, that he was always looking to try to help you maybe understand things on the level he did and to the depth that he did. And I read every book he gave me. I'll say that.
Can I ask what the books were?
There was one, it's funny. I'm drawing a blank as I'm sitting here. I was afraid you were going to do that.
Sorry, Beau.
They're in my bookshelf at home, but they were sports books. Yeah. There was one about the Philadelphia Phillies because of course I grew up a Phillies fan. There was I don't remember. I've read so many books over the years. I don't remember. I don't remember which ones specifically he gave me right now.
It was an unfair follow-up for me to do to you. I'm sorry, David Boclair.
If I was at home in my office, I know right where they are. They're part of a collection I have in a bookshelf there in my office. But I could tell you real quickly that way.
Well, maybe Beau, you go home, you tweet a picture for people at Boclair Sports, and they can remember Mark that way as a part of the great tribute that you and so many other people throughout the course of today and yesterday have been able to offer. I really appreciate you coming on, Beau. Thanks for doing it. And I'm sorry for your loss, brother.
Yeah, if I could say one more thing real quickly, too,
Please.
Because so many callers and so many listeners have talked about his son Jack and the love he had for Jack and whatnot. And Mark was always very open talking about Jack. I can assure people of this, that Jack is very well known and very popular in the neighborhood, and there are going to be people looking out for Jack very, very closely and very carefully. I already had a talk with him yesterday. My wife had a talk with him. I know another neighbor did. Jack is going to be well looked after by a lot of folks here in the next couple of weeks as he deals with what he has to deal with.
You're the best, buddy. Thank you for stopping by, and thank you for the words. I know the audience really, really appreciates hearing from you on it.
All right, we'll see. Well, thanks a lot, Buck. We'll talk to everybody later.
Yes, sir. David Boclair at Boclair Sports. SI.com is where you can read him. In listening to Beau talk about radio people that way, there is something, and this was not something that I understood until I got to work here and to see how cool this community is. I mean, Lucas, we've been talking about this bowling thing for God knows how long, and I told you I was terrified. I didn't think anybody was gonna show up to this thing, but just the impact that the station has and how big a part of that Mark was as a part of day-to-day discourse, it just always kind of strikes you. Are there people that you look up to in how you want to do your job, whatever that is, whether it's play-by-play? Obviously you run our stuff around here, but I know that the on-air aspirations are what, as much as we joke about it, are what you kind of look for, because when in listening to Beau describe a guy like that, that seems such an incredible throwback to me in ways that you don't see a lot anymore.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people got to see the TV version of him for so many years, and then the way he sort of evolved into his radio personality. What I loved about it was not taking himself too seriously. It's my favorite thing about listening to him, which I think is a quality that too many people don't have, was he had the depths of knowledge that nobody else had or has in this market. It's amazing how things get phased out of your memory, right, as time goes by. But it's like nothing ever got phased out of Mark Howard's memory when it came to sports. So I love that he had those depth of knowledge that nobody else had, but still never took himself too seriously and was okay being the butt of the joke. I think that's such an underrated quality in people that do what we do, and it was one of my favorite things about listening to him.
It speaks to a different level of intellect that's required. Now, I'm as smart as the computer in front of me, right? Like, that's been the evolution of a lot of media. I can't remember what we do from segment to segment, much less for you to ask me trivia questions about sports history and things like that. Like, yeah, maybe every once in a while I'll get there, but not in the way, especially for that long of a period of time, to remember vivid details and to have it just there at the front of your memory at any given notice, because you have no idea where that's going over the course of a show. I mean, we do a silly, stupid thing for 3 hours a day that they allow us to do on the air here. But when Beau brought up the idea of a perfect show and how much Mark would painstakingly go over the subject matter, it speaks to a kind of a, and I'm not saying that this is completely lost, but that's kind of a lost art, you know? I mean, to come in here with legal pads, books, and a newspaper and do a radio show, that sounds horrifying to me. You mean I can't look up some kind of information while a caller is asking me a question on my phone or on my laptop in front of me in a fraction of a second? That it takes the laptop to send a message to a satellite in space, come back to me in 30 seconds, or the time it takes for my browser to load? Like, come on.
He didn't need Google because he was Google.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean,
you don't find people like that.
People have those photographic memories in sports, I think, in their most formative years. Like, I was talking to Mickey Ryan about this when he joined me on Inside Zone, because Mickey's the same way, right? That photographic sports memory. But people have that from when they're growing up, from when they're most passionate about those sports. Like, I can tell you about every game with the Titans and Tennessee football from like 2007 to 2012, like middle school through high school, that type of thing. But Mark had that for seemingly every era of sports in his life, which I think spoke to his passion for it.
Mickey is somebody else who reminds me of that kind of a person.
Yeah.
Right? Mickey's definitely got that ability in ways that are always. It shouldn't surprise me. I've known Mickey for a long time now. Like, it shouldn't surprise me when he's able to do stuff like that. But it just, we wanted to do just whatever we could to kind of honor the memory of a man who set the example for so many of us, and who I know mattered a great deal to so many of your lives. And certainly, in all the morning show did a great job. Jason and Schaefer did an absolutely killer job. And I know Schaefer's been pretty beat up about it today.
Yeah, tough day today. They really crushed it for 4 hours.
So, like I said, if you want to remember Mark throughout the course of our show, this is an open platform for listeners of The Zone who want to pay tribute to the man. We're going to do show around it, but we're wide open all day long for you. 615-737-1045. We're grateful for Boclair for keeping that, for bringing us some of those memories, and for bringing back some of those memories for some of you guys. Alex Daugherty, who I know has a great deal of respect for Mark Howard because of the vehicle that the Wake Up Zone was for his career as a Preds writer. There was some interesting news with the Nashville Predators free agency going along, so we'll talk to Alex about the latest and get his information on that. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Did you know the cost Welcome back. Lucas is having the. What are you smiling about? What are you giggling about?
Why? Nothing.
Yeah. Keep it moving. Do you hate as much as I hate when talk radio show hosts like myself say, if only we could bring the off-air conversations on the air, it'd be a way better show.
We do that all the time.
I almost just did that again, all the time. But it's true. Maybe we start podcasting these things or in the commercial breaks, and then everybody gets fired. Anyway, Alex Daugherty is here. Preds news, Nino Niederreiter, the latest addition to this squad in free agency. Alex, how are we today?
I am great. How are you, Buck?
I am well. I am interested to learn about what you think of the Predators' free agency strategy, because as I sit here, I feel okay. I feel fine, but it would seem to the untrained eye, Alex, that they still have significant work to do to address the issues that got them swept out of the postseason.
Well, they're a long way off from competing with Colorado Avalanche. There's no doubt about that. But they are improving. I mean, I think Poile has done a pretty good job, despite a couple of confusing moves. He's done a pretty good job of improving the roster. I mean, I think the most significant one is getting Nino Niederreiter. So when you looked at the free agent lists going into this offseason and you saw the names out there, I mean, there was Nazem Kadri, of course, Johnny Gaudreau, and then Matthew Tkachuk's name is bandied around. I think that most people thought that they would be out on those kind of talents, but Nino Niederreiter's name might have gone unnoticed because, well, one, it became pretty clear early on that the Predators were not going to spend a lot of money, and we're also not going to give a lot of term. So that was a big thing with Poile. He did not want to give a long amount of term to an older veteran, and Niederreiter's 29.
Sure.
So then when they make that signing and it's only a 2-year deal at $4 million a year, I mean, that is a really good deal for the Predators. And when you really examine the addition, Nino Niederreiter is going to fit perfectly on this roster. Number one, he's played with multiple players on this team. He's played with Roman Josi before. He's played with Ryan Johansson before. He's played with Mikael Granlund. So he already knows the style of these players. But he's a pretty physical guy, but he's got skill. So he's going to fit physically in the lineup with John Hines' style almost from day one. I mean, he's going to fit perfectly there. And he also has speed and skill. He's a 20-goal scorer every year. He's going to put up some assists. He's going to play on the power play. He's got good speed. He's got good puck skills. I think that addition alone makes the team a lot better. And then you factor in Ryan McDonough, who's going to improve the blue line. I think David Poile's done a pretty good job. I don't know that he's going to do much more. I think he's still got to sign, Jakob Trenin, whose arbitration date is a week away, but I don't know that there's really much else he could do. I mean, other than obviously trading for Matthew Tkachuk, which is obviously not going to happen anymore. But with the options out there, I think Poile's done a pretty good job.
At Alex Daugherty 1 is where you can follow Alex Daugherty. He covers the Preds for A2ZSports.com. You can read all of his great articles there, as well as check out the podcast, the On the Preds podcast, available in your favorite podcast feed right now, talking about the fit for Nino Niederreiter specifically with John Hines' system. So you bring up Matthew Tkachuk, and that was a conversation. I've been off for a couple of days, Alex, but I did see on social media just general conversation about the Preds at least being in the hunt, like seeking out the interest level by Tkachuk and by his representation, basically, in coming to Nashville. Is it enough for David Poile, who, as you said, has done well this offseason so far? Was it enough for Preds fans to just hear that the organization was in on pursuing him, even if they did not end up acquiring that kind of a player?
So, here's the issue. There's conflicting reports about how interested they were. I believe Poile over the weekend said something like Nashville was not one of Tkachuk's teams. So that was what Poile said, but that was after the trade was made. So again, this is Poile being, a GM who knows that he's in the public eye.
Yeah.
Maybe since they didn't get the trade done, maybe he's just going to say that. I mean, I feel like there had to be some conversation going on because a talent like that just being all of a sudden available, and the Predators having not only the cap money, but trade capital and prospect capital to move to get him, they had to be in on it. So I don't think there was any way that they were just not in the conversation at all. Given the price that Florida paid for getting him, there's no way they could have done it. I mean, they did not have the equivalent of Huberdeau and Weegar and the draft picks and everything that they sent to Calgary. They were never going to get Matthew Tkachuk based on that price. It was going to be a long shot anyways. You know, I think the good thing for the Predators fans and for the Predators themselves, he didn't go to St. Louis. He didn't go to Dallas, and he's in the Eastern Conference now. You don't have to deal with Matthew Tkachuk and realistically for the next 8 years. So the Predators they didn't get him, but he didn't land in St. Louis, and you don't have to play him 8 times a year. So
right, and I guess that's the question that we should land on as far as where the Preds and what direction the Preds are heading, rather compared to the rest of the Western Conference. The question comes back to: is this a roster that has a better chance at contention in a conference that is hugely competitive, and certainly a division that's hugely competitive?
Yes, I think they are. I mean, they made the playoffs last year. We all know that was barely in, and then they got swept. They're a better team than that. If they play the Avalanche again in the first round, they're probably not going to win. But
sure,
I think they're a top 3 in the division. I think they're not as good as Colorado. They're probably not as good as St. Louis, and they're right there, kind of behind Minnesota. And then I think they're right in line with maybe St. Louis and Dallas, kind of all 3 of those teams kind of hovering around the same level. Minnesota might take a step back too, because they lost Kevin Fiala and they won't be as good without him. The Predators are better. They were so bad and they were so kind of average for a while that doesn't mean they're going to be in the Western Conference final automatically or something. It's going to be a long time for that. At least 2-3 more years, maybe even longer, if some of these other prospects don't develop the right way. So they're better, but don't expect a lot this next year. Probably a playoff team, maybe another first round exit. Maybe if they get lucky and they play someone like a Vegas in the first round and they match up well with them, maybe they could get past them. But it's not going to be a Stanley Cup run immediately right just after these couple moves. No.
Alex Daugherty here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Now, since Alex is here on 104.5 The Zone, we cannot lay claim to having Alex or introducing Alex to the 104.5 The Zone audience. That responsibility belongs to the Wake Up Zone. And one of the members of the longtime running Nashville local, or Middle Tennessee, I guess, local sports talk radio show, Mark Howard, passing away yesterday. I saw your tweet thread online yesterday, Alex, about what kind of opportunity Mark and that show afforded to you, and I thought that you may want the opportunity to kind of articulate that to the audience who may not have seen your messages on socials.
Yeah, I think when I think about Mark Howard, I think about the morning show, of course, but I think what's interesting about Mark is, and you've heard a lot of this stuff today with all the stuff that J. Martin Ramon show did today, with obviously you guys having Boclair on. I think, you cannot imagine a Mount Rushmore of Nashville media without Mark Howard on it. I think he's so impactful for so many different mediums, for radio, for TV, for print, for all the different sports, Titans and Preds. So I think his impact is so wide that it's just amazing to listen to all these people talk about it. So for me, saying my piece feels so small potatoes, but at the same time, it has made a big impact on my career and where I am today with A to Z Sports and my different things that I do, the podcast, everything. When I got a text message from Mark Howard and then also from Brandon Hagney, who ran the morning show at that time, to come on and talk about an article I had written on the forecheck. You have to remember, you have no idea who's even reading your stuff. You're putting stuff out there, you're working hard on it, and you think it's good, and then it just kind of goes into the ether. For someone like that to reach out and say, I really liked your work, could you come on and talk about it?
Yeah.
Just blew my mind, right? I mean, it's and then you come on and you talk about it, and then you come back and you develop a friendship and a relationship with this person, and then it really meant a lot to me. And I think Mark was one of those guys that I've heard many people say today, he was always willing to help. He was always willing to to comment on your work and say how good it was, or to ask you questions about it, to ask what you're working on, to see what's going on. And I just really cherish that. And I thought Mark was great at that. On top of the fact that I found Mark hilarious. I thought Mark was so funny at just like in the strangest moments. I mean, anybody who listens to 104.5 The Zone after a Titans game, especially if it's like a loss or maybe a close win where they didn't play well.
There are a few of those.
Yeah, there's a few of those. To just hear him dress down a caller who calls in and says like, "Oh, Vince Young's he's going to be the leader of the team," and Mark's like, "Oh, was he a leader of the team when he turned the football over 3 times in the second half?" And it just like instantly off the cuff, not planned, just like sarcasm, cynicism immediately was perfect. I mean, I would drive around after a Titans game and just listen to Mark Howard talk to callers because it was so much fun. I thought he was hilarious, and I'm going to miss that. I'm going to really, really, really miss that.
You're not alone, buddy. Thank you for hopping on. We appreciate the memory and certainly the information. A2ZSports.com is where you can read Alex Daugherty and all the Preds work that he is doing. Thanks for the time, bud.
Thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
That's Alex Daugherty. At Alex Daugherty1 is where you can follow him. All right, so from one local pro team to another, there was, it seems, good reporting or good information being spread out there this weekend about one notable Titans player who they need to step up for training camp. We're going to give you that information coming up next.
It is 11:04. Good morning from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans officially kick off training camp tomorrow as Mike Vrabel will meet with the media in the morning. Team made a few transactions over the weekend, including signing rookie corner Roger McCreary on Friday, as well as quarterback Malik Willis, officially putting the entire 2022 draft class under contract. The team also waived safety Rodney Clemens and re-signed safety Josh Kalu, who's with the team from 2018 to 2020. Kicker Caleb Shudak, tight end Tommy Hudson, and linebacker Monty Rice all placed on the physically unable to perform list to start camp. Longtime 104.5 The Zone host Mark Howard passed away in his home on Sunday. Howard spent over 20 years with the station, 16 years hosting Wake Up Zone in the mornings. Howard was just 65 years old. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
What's happening? Welcome into hour number 2 on this Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. If you are just now joining us, we couldn't be happier to have you here, whether that's on FM radio, whether that's streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, Zone TV, whether that's on the app or if you're catching the podcast after the show. We are happy that you chose to spend a part of your Monday with us. Lucas Panzica making it go, 615-737-1045. You call that number. Lucas will pick up the phone, and then we can chat about whatever you like. We got Titans. We got Vols news to cover. Got news dumped the University of Tennessee on Friday. Were you on the air when this information came out, or was that Blaine and Mickey?
I was with Blaine and Mickey. I was in studio with them, but no, it was after I got done with Will Bowling at 1.
Oh, what? So you wouldn't relinquish your seat in here? You just said, no, I refuse to go back into the production studio. I'm going to sit in here. Who did the show?
Brett. Anytime I host this show, I do not come into the control room. I hang out with Blaine and Mickey in there.
So what are you negotiating? This is slowly a part of you're just going to start taking away from Blaine and Mickey and my show, or I guess our show.
No, just taking away from you. Blaine and Mickey I will not infringe upon. I only speak when invited to speak.
If only we could find that kind of balance here. But Titans stuff as far as training camp goes. Now, I've told you we're gonna have all manner of press conferences tomorrow. Mike Vrabel, John Robinson, and Ryan Cowden, which is pretty interesting. Ryan Cowden, one of the assistant general managers, is going to be speaking at the podium tomorrow. Training camp report day is tomorrow, and then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and basically every day that there are practices on the football field after that, during the week anyway, we'll be doing the radio show out there. So we'll have lots of live coverage for you directly from St. Thomas Sports Park. Now, before everybody gets back into town, people starting to filter in yesterday. Caught up with Ryan Tannehill at his first youth football camp. They did it at Lipscomb yesterday. He hasn't done one since he's been with the Titans. He's had a COVID situation in the middle of all that, so it's been difficult to kind of pull off. But he seemed to really embrace the opportunity to be a part of the community and to interact with kids and parents and a lot of their coaches. One of who if I said, Lucas, one of the on-air staff at 104.5 The Zone was a coach at Ryan Tannehill's youth football camp yesterday, who would you guess that on-air personality would be?
I would guess Blaine. Blaine has done a lot of coaching. He develops defensive backs, but Blaine, I believe, is out of town.
Correct.
So I don't think it's Blaine. I don't think it's Ramon, because I believe Ramon is also
out of town. You can take the two former professional football players out of the equation.
At Ryan Tannehill's camp.
It also wasn't me. I was there, but I wasn't coaching.
Brent Doherty, I believe, is not around.
Brent is not around.
So I have no idea. Was it me? Was I there?
What are you? Oh, what are you?
Who was it?
Dawn. Dawn was coaching
nice.
Dawn was coaching DBs at the youth football camp yesterday, which was pretty funny to see. Harold Hockett says Ron Slay. No, but Slay would be great out there at one of those events, even if it's got nothing to do with basketball
it doesn't
skills.
matter. Yeah, he'd get those kids fired up.
Yeah, no, it seemed like a good time. But anyway, saw Des Fitzpatrick, saw Mason Kinsey. They came out to support Ryan Tannehill, and guys are starting to filter back into town. Quarterbacks, undrafteds, and rookie draft picks, they have all been in since, I believe, last Friday. The coaches, the front office, filtering back into the building off of vacation the week prior. So now on Tuesday, everybody's there, media included, and we get going for another football season. So with that being said, obviously, to kind of refresh a conversation, by the way, a round of applause for us. Can we give ourselves a round of applause? Can we self-indulge here?
For what?
Well, give me the applause and then I'll tell you.
Well, no, we have to. There has to be a reason for the applause.
You can't withhold the applause if I call for the applause.
Well, you have to tell me what it is. I can't just give you applause for something. It has to be worthy.
All you need to know is that we deserve it. Now, give me the damn applause.
Is it a we thing?
Yes,
okay.
we.
All right.
Give me the applause. Don't withhold the clapping. A round of applause for us for making it through 6 weeks of offseason without talking about Jeffrey Simmons' hold-in or Treylon Burks' asthma at any point. We set these principles out at the front, on the front end in mid-June, and we upheld our part of the bargain to not talk about asthmatic wide receivers and defensive tackle hold-ins at mandatory minicamp. Anyway, so Treylon Burks continues to be a storyline. We talked about the PUP stuff. Robert Woods not on the physically unable to perform list. Full go for training camp. Things you love to see. Things that seem impossible coming off a mid-November ACL tear. But I remember I went to the Titans Foundation dinner, and he was one of the people that they had up on the stage to do kind of an interview series. Mike Keith was obviously running the show, and they had Robert Woods attend and meet Titans fans and speak about his progress. And basically, he felt at that point, that was May 20th, the Foundation dinner. He was talking at that point about the idea he felt he was being held back a little bit. He felt like he could give more right out of the gate. And it's kind of worked out perfectly as far as the timeline for him is concerned. So then there's Treylon Burks, because obviously in the absence of any legitimate information about Treylon Burks, well, Robert Woods is going to be counted on significantly more. And the question that I would ask the audience before I let you hear from our friend Diana Rossini, who had some information on Treylon Burks most recently this weekend, my question to you would be, is there something you need out of him on day one of training camp, Wednesday, when we conclude the practice portion at, I believe, 11:30? What must you see from Treylon Burks in that first day of practice? 615-737-1045. I'll tell you how I feel about it here in just a second. But first, some information from Diana Rossini, who made an appearance on the Athletics NFL podcast.
AJ gets shipped, they go for Burks here. And there are some characteristics that are similar to AJ. I wouldn't say a lot, though. But there are some things that he does that I know that they're excited about. So I show up to camp, and he can't even get through warm-ups because he's winded. And the first sign of anyone ever getting winded, only because it was me when I was in college, is whenever someone's shoulders hurt because you're breathing the wrong way. Right? So you're doing weird things with your body to catch your breath. And he was doing it. And so then all of a sudden he had ice on his shoulders. And I'm not trying to play doctor here, but just as a reporter standing on the sideline, I knew right away, I'm like, he is out of shape. The damn rookie that they drafted in the first round is out of shape. This is a nightmare. Vrabel is going to have this kid running from Tennessee to Ohio. And everything I've heard since then has been awesome. I've heard he's in shape. I've heard he's lost weight. I've heard there's been so much growth already. And this is an organization that doesn't like to share, I don't want to say it doesn't like to share positive stuff, but they're not quick to go there. And the stuff I've been getting from some people, some low-level people too as well, like they've heard that, oh, he's working out tons, he dropped the weight, he's good to go. So I think heading into camp, this is a really good first step, considering I thought that was going to be an absolute disaster.
So that's Diana, and she goes on at some length. Again, that's courtesy of the Athletics NFL podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. Since training camp is, I assume Diana's going to come for training camp at some point, so perhaps we can work something out around her television schedule since she was here for rookie minicamp because, of course, at that time, Mentorgate. What a time to be alive that was. Feels like so long ago, bud, that we survived, marked safe in the event of Mentorgate. We made it, all of us together.
I saw someone with the delay on Malik Willis's rookie contract. Maybe it was Mike Herndon saying, rumor is Malik Willis couldn't sign his rookie contract because Tannehill keeps stealing his pens.
I had it because we got the email from the organization that both he and Roger McCreary, by the way, the whole draft class since we've been on the air last is now under contract, so everybody's ready to go for training camp. But I saw a couple of responses like Malik Willis hasn't signed his rookie deal because Ryan Tannehill tore it up in front of him and ran away. which I kind of, obviously completely unfair to Tannehill. By the way, I show up at this youth football camp yesterday, and it's not run by the Titans. So it's run by this company called Flex Work Management or something. They do athlete football camps around the country, pro athlete football camps around the country. And they have their own PR arm. So they're coming up and saying, all right, no questions about the playoff game. No questions about Malik Willis. We're just here to talk about the camp, talk to the quarterback about the camp and what we're doing. Literally a line from one of the women who was directing, Jim Wyatt, Teron Davenport, and a couple others, including myself, was, we can talk about football another day. I said, well, no, we can talk about football today because the quarterback is here to talk about football. But anyway. With Treylon Burks, it's kind of similar to what Sam Pittman said last week on 3HL. Now, I was also out for that interview, but the current Arkansas head coach, and most recently the head coach of Treylon Burks and the offensive line coach of Isaiah Wilson, which should not be lost on anybody in the middle of this, as much as people seem to love Sam Pittman. Oof. He had some comments on 3HL that I think are going to fall in line exactly with what Diana's reporting just was. And we'll let you hear from Sam Pittman on 3HL coming up next.
The Buck Rising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Welcome back. So apparently my tease, or even the near slander. I didn't even slander Sam Pittman. We've been harassed
It was
about
the implication.
what I almost said about Sam Pittman.
Yeah, it was the implication.
Who is implying that my implication was unfounded or unnecessary, or perhaps even harmful?
Yes, our friend Josh Pate has texted me. Josh Pate, who, when I asked him on Friday who enjoyed sitting down with the most at SEC Media Days, very quickly answered Sam Pittman.
Sure.
And Josh Pate texts me, says, hey, ask me what I think about Buck slandering Sam Pittman. So I said, hey, Josh, what do you think about Buck slandering Sam Pittman? Would prefer your answer in GIF form, please. He did not send a GIF, but he did send this video of you, and I'm just going to try them and hold this up to the mic.
I'm so tired of the wasted energy.
That actually worked out better than
that's pretty good.
It worked out better than our Hey Siri bit. That never works.
No.
Because my volume's always turned down and I'm looking at my phone like an idiot on a dead mic. Anyway, all right, Pate, relax. Like, everybody in the SEC's got a crush on Sam Pittman, understandably so. He seems to be the human embodiment of a Razorback. Like, he seems to be it. Doesn't he have the fountain or like the statue of the Razorback mascot?
Yeah, he said it was a marlin, a statue of a marlin on his lakefront house, but that a storm basically wiped it out. And when the insurance company put it back up, he requested they make it a slobbering hog, and they did.
Outstanding. So I am not slandering anything about the man. But what I will say to you is, if I was a Tennessee Titans general manager calling Sam Pittman for recommendations on players, I might have a degree of hesitancy as of late, which is completely fair criticism. Because I imagine John Robinson, a couple weeks after mandatory minicamp, this most recent time around, after Isaiah Wilson and Sam Pittman is his offensive line coach, and Treylon Burks, his head coach, Treylon Burks is head coach at Arkansas. I imagine John Robinson getting through mandatory minicamp, pulling up Sam Pittman on his phone and be like, hey, coach, what the bleep? What are we doing out here? You got anything for me on this guy? Because you sure as hell didn't 3 weeks ago when we drafted him. What is happening? And it was funny because I was out of town for a good portion of SEC Media Days. So I did not hear this Sam Pittman interview with 3HL until I saw it getting aggregated, certainly locally. Sam Pittman was on 3HL at SEC Media Days, and they asked him, generally about Treylon Burks, not specifically about conditioning issues. And it was the Arkansas head coach himself who volunteered, yeah, he probably came in out of shape because that's what he did to us too.
What I believe, you've got a strong teammate. He has great ball skills. Once he gets his confidence, he's going to need that. I remember last year against Rice, and he'd dropped some passes. He wasn't playing well. He wasn't really a major factor in that game. He got some confidence as the game went on, and then the next game was, started being what I thought was a first round round draft pick. But you're going to get a great team leader. The community's going to be proud of him once he gets once he gets in shape.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he didn't go in there in great shape.
Right.
It's the same way when he was a sophomore. When he came
I read
for
that
us,
you had said that, yeah.
He wasn't in good shape. He couldn't last practice and all. And it's not that he just quit. He just couldn't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He just was out of shape. I don't know what hunting hogs does for your cardiovascular, but evidently not a whole lot.
So, does that sound familiar? Like that's not coming off as a stinging indictment of Treylon Burks, because what did Treylon Burks go on to do last year? Look like an absolute badass on the field of play, and has consistently, throughout the course of his college career, turned himself into a first-round draft pick. It's one of the most, I think it's the biggest disconnect between how Titans fans are receiving him and what it is that got him drafted in the first round in the first place. Because Pittman articulating this. We've run that audio before of him being at a press conference talking about the kind of shape that they needed or that they challenged Treylon Burks to get into prior to his senior season at Arkansas, or prior to last season. Was he a junior or a senior?
I believe he left a year early.
Okay, so prior to his junior season, as Sam Pittman alluded to in that clip. Yeah, he came in his sophomore year. He's kind of, a little bit of baby fat, a little bit of conditioning stuff. We had to get him into shape. He got himself into shape. So I think that's the biggest disconnect is you go watch him from the last 2 seasons of Arkansas as a substantive, or I guess as a larger sample size, and you say, yeah, that's a first-round draft pick. I want him on my football team. And then he gets here, and he's out of shape again. And you're looking around and be like, what the bleep? And I'm having people send me screenshots of an Instagram post because he's sitting on the lake in a boat, taking a picture, eating Doritos. Like, okay, whatever. I'm not. It is a concern. It is something that has been documented at length. The asthma stuff, honestly, the asthma stuff may be the most overplayed part of the Treylon Burks situation. Because Diana, the thing she was describing about ice packs on his shoulders, she came up to me and told that was the day that she was there for rookie minicamp. And she had noted that while we were all standing on the sidelines together. It's the first time that anybody had pointed something like that out to me. But Diana, I believe, played college soccer, so she recognized it because that's something that I guess you do when you're laboring to breathe or when you're overheated or dealing with conditioning issues. So I guess my thing is, if he's already done it once, come in out of shape, played himself into great shape, and looks to be a thoroughbred as far as a football player is concerned, when you watch him, then can you forgive him coming in a little out of it at the start? Or are we so hyper-scrutinized on this player, on this individual, to the point where I got other friends in different media markets or who work at national networks talking about, yeah, that Treylon Burks kid, he ain't going to make it, is he? I'm like, I have no idea. He just got here. The larger issue is he's been here for about 2 months now, about 6 weeks of which we haven't seen, to be fair. And I don't have a sample size of what I have seen him progress in. You know what I'm saying? Like, I walk out there, he does a ladder drill, and he's done for the day. And then he may not even come out the next day. And whatever these setbacks are, one state secret by the Titans representatives at the podium, Vrabel, Robinson, whatever. But secondarily, I don't have a good measurement of what he is to tell people other than, yeah, he's not finishing practice. I got nothing for you on this. The conditioning portion of it, as long as he's ready to go by September, I don't care if he's got to play himself into shape in OTAs. I don't care if he's got to play himself into shape or if he comes in better shape by the time the training camp starts. Because, yeah, I'm not going to be mad at the kid if he wants to enjoy himself a little bit after he gets drafted in the first round. Whatever that may look like, whether he's taking some time off the workouts or whether that's, dietary restrictions or whatever. Things that he has not disclosed to us, so I cannot speak to specifically.
If what Diana was saying was true and we see it play out during training camp where he's fine, then that would have been kind of the wake-up call, right? And the concerns about asthma would pretty much be alleviated for the most part if this has happened before and the asthma has never held him back at his previous level. If what Diana is saying is true, you got to think that was a pretty big wake-up call for him coming in with rookie minicamp.
Well, but I guess what I'm describing here is a pattern of behavior. Now, maybe at some point he'll grow out of that. Maybe. He just got here. Yeah, How old is Treylon Burks? He's 21?
Oh, I'll look it up.
He's 22.
He would be in his junior year of college if he had not declared. He's 22, yeah.
I will forgive Treylon Burks at 22 years of age if he does not have the work ethic of an NFL professional athlete who's been in the league for 8 years. If he's not Robert Woods right out the gate. You know what I'm saying? Now, it is a documented thing, both at Arkansas and now in the pros. So can it be a part of the discourse? Yes. It is a part of the story of Treylon Burks so far on this roster.
But you know what the problem is, it feels like now, right? Where before it was a little bit ambiguous. Like, is the asthma really going to continue to be an issue? Why did he have ice packs on his shoulders? But now it feels like we know, no, it was a conditioning thing. He was just out of shape. He's done it before.
So, and you can interact with the show on the phone lines or on Zone TV if you like. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch live streaming. Tyler B. on YouTube says, yes, Lucas, correct. I think Burks maybe thought, well, I got through it in college. I can do it in the NFL. Wrong, buddy. I think he got humbled and took advice to heart. But I don't think that Arkansas was letting him slough off. I think Arkansas had to get him into shape so that he could perform at the level commensurate with being a first-round pick. The SEC is not, I mean, it is different than the pros. There is obviously a much higher caliber of athlete spread across any given roster in the NFL than there is in the SEC, even as it's the greatest college football conference that we have. But I think to assume that you would be able to just kind of put it on cruise control that way, that's not really the case. And, you know, I think a lot of people will project that same kind of feeling, as Tyler is saying here. I think he got humbled and took that advice to heart. I don't know if he did or not, because the guy didn't say anything. You know, I mean, he deferred the conditioning questions to Mike Vrabel. He deferred the asthma questions to Mike Vrabel. Maybe he's not comfortable dealing with us yet. It took Derrick Henry several years to just be able to do podium stuff comfortably and confidently. I don't expect these guys to be super polished, super forthright, and super comfortable right when we get them for the first time in there as pros. And all we represent to them is, if I say anything to these people ever, I'm going to get in trouble or there's going to be a headline on Twitter. And that, I think, is the balance that you're having here. A rookie who's, one, may not be that forthcoming anyway. All I know of Treylon Burks is that he's a good old boy, likes to hunt and fish. He's from Arkansas. And that's different than the wide receiver that I've just previously dealt with in A.J. Brown. So you're kind of weighing different personalities and how they handle situations differently. But I think that the news of him being in better physical condition ahead of training camp, we will see come Wednesday. And as far as what I'm looking for him on Wednesday, just finish the practice. Do the full practice. And then do it again on Thursday. And if you got it in you, do it again on Friday. Show me progress. Because that's the thing that I lack in the Treylon Burks experience. So early on yet. But I lack substantive evidence of progress. And why that matters more than anything is because the reason he's not progressing and the reason why they can't progress with him as a football team, as a contributing piece of the football team, is because he's not getting the reps with the quarterback. Reps in anything, time spent, whatever you do for a living, you're going to get better the more frequently you do it, with greater repetition, greater comfort level. It just becomes second nature. Again, I come back to the idea that you never worried about Ryan Tannehill with A.J. Brown because they had that time together. And so for Treylon Burks, he's working at a disadvantage already. How much ground he can make up ahead of preseason games when we're coming up on preseason games in 2.5 weeks? That's right there. The first one at Baltimore. I don't know this for certain. I doubt Ryan Tannehill plays in the preseason. So again, you're talking about opportunities for Treylon Burks to get live reps with a guy who he desperately needs those with. 615-737-1045 is the number. Jay says on YouTube, didn't CJ2K notoriously eat McDonald's all offseason for a few years? Probably. I mean, it's like DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf said he eats like 2 bags of candy a day, and he still looks like he's chiseled from marble. It's trash. Some people's bodies respond differently. I think I can't. There was another recent example of a longtime professional athlete, Brian Urlacher. I was just listening to the Brian Urlacher episode with Luan and Compton on Bussin' with the Boys, and apparently Brian Urlacher eats like absolute trash, like cheeseburgers, French fries, chicken wings, all of it. And it just doesn't faze him because he metabolizes those things differently. So it's just about how you manage yourself physically and how those things go. Stony Keeley writes, Lindale White was basically fueled by buffalo wings and tequila, and he was a hammer. It's a different buffalo wings and tequila. It sounds like a great way to go through life. So we will continue to monitor that situation. Robert Woods, of course, as we touched on to start the show, him being a part of this is so important. And in fact, to hear Robert Woods speak about his progress and getting the Titans over the hump, I think that's the kind of thing that you can lean on in the immediate, given that off the ACL tear, he doesn't look to have any limitations.
I think this defense is playing well, capitalizing on finishing plays. Obviously, the offense has been there, having the leading rusher, a great line up front. And like I said, they should have been a lot further in the playoffs last year. And really just added my game and let's get over that hump and let's go and win this thing.
He's their best shot to. We posed this question for a poll, and in fact, let's update it, Lucas, at Buck Rising on Twitter. Who is the best wide receiver in the AFC South right now? Because for the life of me, I had to think about it for a good 10 minutes while we were on the phone this morning before I came up with an answer that I felt comfortable and confident in.
There's no surprise here that Robert Woods is taking the majority of the vote. 41% are saying it's Woods. And
I would consider that a surprise.
Really?
I would.
That's a surprise to you?
Yeah. I mean, Robert Woods is a career second fiddle.
What percentage of your 25,000 followers on Twitter are Titans fans?
Is that how many I have? I would say probably 75% of those people are Titans fans.
And you're surprised that they tabbed their guy as the best receiver in the AFC South.
I am, just from the standpoint of like how many of them were clamoring for Robert Woods prior to him being on their football team. Prior to thinking that he was again going to be second fiddle, a great second fiddle, but again a second fiddle at the time to AJ. Yeah, think about Robert Woods, wide receiver one. He wasn't wide receiver one on his own team when he got here.
Well, Woods has 41% of the vote. Brandon Cooks, who would be my pick, has 33%, 24% Michael Pittman, 2% Christian Kirk, question mark? I didn't know who's a better receiver, Marvin Jones or Christian Kirk? I have no idea at this stage in their career.
Who did they draft? The Jags.
Ooh,
they had to have drafted a receiver, right? Especially with a new coaching staff, because I think like Laviska Shenault is still on that roster. I need to start refamiliarizing myself with the rest of the AFC South.
They went heavy on defense, right, with Trayvon Walker, the number one overall pick, and Devin Lloyd out of Utah.
Well, and their defense is wretched. Like their defense and offensive line, atrocious in Jacksonville.
They did not take a receiver.
They did not.
No, they grabbed Snoop Connor, the running back out of Ole Miss. And other than that, they went so heavy on defense. The only offensive players they drafted, in fact... Oh, they drafted interior offensive lineman Luke Fortner out of Kentucky. So they drafted an O-lineman and a running back. Other than that, all on the defensive side of the ball. They didn't have a ton of picks, too.
They're going to run the ball and play defense. Oof. So out of that, 615-737-1045, who is the best wide receiver in the AFC South? I'm going to tell you who it is definitively coming up next. Welcome back. Get to this AFC South or best receiver in the AFC South conversation here in just a second. Not a lot of options to pick from. I'd be curious to hear who you think it is. 615-737-1045. But quickly, you can join Lucas and myself for a VIP experience at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. That's coming up, by the way, kids. You think preseason football's right around the corner. Music City GP, that is coming up even sooner. You can listen to our show for the chance to win a Music City Grand Prix VIP experience on the General Jackson Showboat. That includes all-day food. You got AC on the boat. You've got race coverage on the General Jackson. You can get off the boat and go and check out the track, the incredible concert series that they're having all weekend long. We're hosting a driver meet and greet. How is this going to work, by the way? Are you and I up on a stage together hosting this? Do we have any of the details on this so far?
I mean, I don't know who the driver is going to be, but it will be cool to hang out with one of the drivers on the boat before the race. I think it's just going to be a big party. Like, this is not going to be some formal thing. Like, this is just going to be us having fun on a boat, watching cars zoom over the bridge.
General admission race tickets come with this VIP package, by the way, and the access to the Opry concerts afterwards. For more information and where you can get your Music City Grand Prix VIP experience, 1045thezone.com. Derek says Lucas is hosting it. Buck, you're just there. Yep, that's basically how this goes. So, who's the best receiver in the AFC South? And why is it Brandon Cooks?
Yeah, I think it is Brandon Cooks.
That's not even close.
It's consistent production with a revolving door at the quarterback position. He's been the one bright spot in that offense in this last X amount of years of inconsistency and dysfunction. Brandon Cooks is still there. He's still producing at a high level consistently.
So, Brandon Cooks, how many years do you think he's been in the league?
I'm going to guess that Brandon Cooks has been in the league for 8 years.
He on the nose.
Oh, really?
How many years in the league has Robert Woods been?
Oh, longer. 10?
9.
Okay.
So one more season with a shortened season. So about a half a season, given that Robert Woods last year tore the ACL and missed basically middle of November on. How many times do you think that in 8 seasons, Brandon Cooks has eclipsed the 1,000 yards receiving mark?
In 8 seasons, I'm going to say 6 times.
That is correct. He has 6 times on 1, 2, 3, 4 different teams been a 1,000-yard receiver. Now, he has been the focal point of a couple of different offenses, so it's a different circumstance than what Robert Woods has been in a variety of different stops. In 9 seasons, let's say 8.5, because you know that he did not achieve 1,000 yards last season. In 9 seasons, how many times would you say that Robert Woods has eclipsed the 1,000 yards receiving mark?
Let me guess 4.
You are incorrect.
What is it?
Lower.
Oh, 3.
Lower.
Only 2?
Only 2. In 2018 and in 2019 with the Los Angeles Rams, he had 1,219 yards and 1,134 yards respectively. Not respectfully. Maybe respectfully.
And respectfully.
He could have done it respectfully. I don't know. He seems like a lovely guy. But yes, only twice has Robert Woods in a passing offense, even though Jared Goff has clear and obvious limitations. So I saw an argument being made not that long ago that Jared Goff was better than Ryan Tannehill, and I wanted to scream at somebody. But whatever you believe Jared Goff and the Rams' offensive limitations to be, in only 2 of the 5 seasons, 4.5 for the purposes of the ACL year, in 2 of the 4.5 seasons, he eclipsed the 1,000 yards receiving mark. He got almost to 1,000 yards in 2020, 936 across 16 games. 615-737-1045. Michael Pitt. What is Michael Pittman in the Colts? That dude, he can't catch a ball on 3rd downs, it would seem to me, but he catches every touchdown. It's crazy. Like the inconsistency with the Colts wide receivers beyond peak T.Y. Hilton, it's been kind of a cluster. They got nothing out of Paris Campbell so far. And really, for what Jacksonville is dealing with, I guess Christian Kirk is the answer. just by contract alone. It's not like they've got, I mean, we talked about it earlier. They didn't draft a wide receiver this year. They don't have any young and upcoming studs that you feel good about. I think we were kind of, at least as a show, we were interested in Marvin Jones here when they had pre-Julio Jones, that is. Marvin Jones has been a fine player, but was not. I mean, obviously, Jacksonville had a hell of a lot worse issues than the wide receiver core in 2021.
Zay Jones is there. They're probably going to use Travis Etienne in the slot a good bit. There was a lot of reporting done throughout minicamp about Etienne having that Deebo Samuel role, but like inverse, right? A running back splitting out more as opposed to a wide receiver coming into the backfield.
Well, that was the one thing that Urban Meyer may have gotten right. Because remember, there was that whole stink after the draft process that they were lining Etienne up with the wide receivers.
Strictly during rookie minicamp.
Yeah.
And we pointed and laughed at him for that. But maybe it was like the 50th dumbest thing he did there. Maybe that actually turned out to be smart.
Yeah. We found one. We one for the win column.
Yes. Good job, Urban.
You got the Bills win, the 9-6 victory, the Josh Allen versus Josh Allen game, and you got putting Etienne specifically at wide receiver when you drafted him as a first-round pick at running back. Excellent job, Uncle Herb. As far as compelling training camp storylines around the league are, just before we transition into some Tennessee stuff that we just missed on Friday with the NCAA allegations, or level 1 violations rather, coming down officially. Compelling training camp storylines around the league, I have to think that Lamar Jackson's contract is the biggest one. I think it's bar none Lamar, because I wasn't here, or I wasn't working when Kyler Murray got his deal that's going to pay him north of what, $45 million a year on this new extension. That should absolutely be the negotiating point for Lamar. And how the Ravens structure that contract for a player who's got a substantially better resume than Kyler Murray does, I think that hovers over everything this year. Because I think there's just so many details on the Lamar negotiation stuff that I find fascinating, just as a part of the general evolution for the league and how the NFL is going to continue to view quarterbacks. But the Cardinals just said, yeah, bleep it. We'll give you the money. Just take it and be done with it. Let's at least beat Lamar's contract so that we don't have to pay for Kyler more on the back end after the MVP gets his deal. That's the biggest one to me.
Yeah, and who's he going to throw to? I mean, that's mine. The fact that the Houston Texans have a better wide receiver one situation than multiple, you would think, contending teams like the Baltimore Ravens.
I think the Chiefs wide receivers are not good.
Look at the Packers wide receiver core right now. Now, the Ravens sticks out the most when you look at Rashad Bateman, the second-year guy out of Minnesota. Mark Andrews is going to get a ton of targets. Yeah. Devin Duvernay, it's just not a great situation. And in Green Bay, it's Christian Watson, the rookie, South Dakota State. Mm-hmm. Was that right? Sammy Watkins, Robert Tonyan at tight end, Amari Rogers, second year out of Clemson. You still got Randall Cobb, and then Alan Lazard, I imagine, will command a lot of the attention.
Oh, and of course, we know who wide receiver one is in all of this.
Randall Cobb, probably.
Yes. I mean, indisputably. Aaron Rodgers went to war for Randall Cobb.
And then the Kansas City Chiefs are looking at Marquez Valdes-Scantling, a former Packer, and Mecole Hardman and Juju. Blech. So they're going to have to cobble some stuff together. I mean, you don't really worry about Pat Mahomes and especially not Aaron Rodgers, but it's interesting that the Houston Texans have a better spot at the top of their wide receiver depth chart than arguably any of those three teams.
Yeah, no, and this is a dispute that you get into with some football people. Maybe we'll have this later in camp because this is a good training camp conversation. Just basically, the disconnect between talent, like top-end talent, and how to make players fit within your system. But we'll save that for another day when there are actual training camp battles playing out literally in front of us as we do the show. Coming up next, though, the University of Tennessee received 18 Level 1 NCAA violations. There have been think pieces written about how bad the University of Tennessee has been and how poorly they've handled the situations since Schiano Sunday. We're going to ask you the question, was Schiano Sunday worth it? I'll give you the details on this coming up next.
It is 12:02. Good afternoon from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. We are one day away from the Tennessee Titans officially kicking off training camp with a Mike Vrabel press conference tomorrow morning. The team did make a few transactions over the weekend, officially signing their entire 2022 draft class, with rookie corner Roger McCreary and quarterback Malik Willis getting their rookie deals over the weekend. The team also waived safety Rodney Clemens and re-signed safety Josh Kalu, who was with the team from 2018 to 2020. You might remember him from a certain field goal block against the Kansas City Chiefs. Kicker Caleb Shudak, tight end Tommy Hudson, and linebacker Monty Rice were placed on the PUP list. Tragic news in local sports on Sunday as longtime Channel 5 sports anchor and 104.5 The Zone host Mark Howard passed away in his home on Sunday. Howard spent over 20 years with the station, over 16 years hosting Wake Up Zone in the mornings, and he was just 65 years old. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
One more hour to go on this Monday. Welcome in, or at least for us. At any rate, we're happy to have you here either way till 1 o'clock. Lucas Panzica, myself, we're making it happen. You can do that too if you want to. 615-737-1045 is the number. 615-737-1045. So, with all the different things happening in local sports last week, and certainly in the world of college sports, college football specifically, this little news dump by the NCAA and the University of Tennessee on a Friday afternoon, I was very, very sorry that we missed out on. So 18 violations, almost $60,000 in illegal benefits by Tennessee football under former coach Jeremy Pruitt. So the NCAA officially charged Tennessee's football program with 18 level 1 alleged rules violations, which, of course, if you are familiar, which I'm sure you are at this point, that's the most severe level of violation under the current rule construct of the NCAA. So impermissible recruiting benefits, the total just about $60,000 paid to prospects, players, and their families under our boy Cornbread. So the allegations in the reporting on this are funny because there was a couple of people who had really good details on this. Among other allegations, this is from Chris Lowe, who, of course, is on regularly with 3HL. He writes on ESPN, Pruitt is accused of providing about $9,000 to the mothers of two prospects. His wife, Casey, is accused of making 25 cash payments totaling about $12,500 to help a prospect's mother make her car payment.
It's the end of her coaching career.
Yeah, she's done. She is now going to be removed from whatever quality control. Well, I guess Joe Judge isn't the Giants' head coach anymore, so they're no longer taking shamed and disgraced former Tennessee football coaches. But yes, Casey out the game. Jeremy Pruitt, I don't know where Jeremy Pruitt is right now.
He's doing nothing.
Nothing?
Yeah, he's not coaching anywhere.
Well, that would make sense because Joe Judge got fired. So with Jeremy Pruitt and having been fired back in January of 2021, the internal investigation, all the different allegations, I was heartbroken to read all the reporting on this and find no mention of McDonald's bags with cash.
Well, they did mention the McDonald's bags and the cash that was alleged.
Yes, but alleged.
But in a different way.
I wanted to... you want to give people the details on that? Because I think that's probably the best part of the story.
It was the best line in the story, no question. I grabbed this from Ross Dellinger's account. Quote, on at least 2 occasions, the staff bought McDonald's for prospects and their families, though the bags included just food and not cash, as was erroneously reported by Dan Patrick. Staff members did, however, buy Chick-fil-A breakfasts for recruits.
Uh-oh. Well, that's the good stuff.
The NCAA is doing the Lord's work with that.
So all of this comes down, and this has been the thing that's just kind of been hovering over Knoxville since 2021. And it made me think back to the press conference where they announced that they would be relieving Jeremy Pruitt of his duties. Now, just 3 days after they announced that that they would no longer be employing Jeremy Pruitt, you had Philip Fulmer, who was the athletic director at the time, at a press conference with several other high-level administrators in the University of Tennessee's organization, and he was asked about how the Jeremy Pruitt tenure would be defined. And you know what he said?
The recruiting has been good.
Recruiting has been good. Phil, man. Like, at least with the Vols are back and they're going to get a piece out of everybody's ass clip that we like to poke fun at Phil Fulmer for. At least that's a good example of somebody at that university caring about that university. Somebody associated with that university having pride in what Tennessee football and Tennessee athletics meant at the peak of their powers. That's just dope. That's just a dopey behavior.
It's like he's doing a bit, right? Like
I couldn't believe it. I watched that live.
That's comedy.
I'm like, did he just say recruiting after his coach is being alleged on a national radio program? Dan Patrick saying that Jeremy Pruitt allegedly handing out McDonald's bags full of cash. You're talking about recruiting?
Well, not just Dan Patrick. They fired him with cause for recruiting violations. And this is the press conference to deal with that, to weather that storm. So to respond to the question, how will this be remembered, with the answer, recruiting has been good, that is objectively funny. It's like he's doing a bit, but he's not doing a bit. He was serious.
But it wasn't that concise because he caught himself in real time. Can we play the clip again?
Certainly the recruiting has been good.
Just the pause.
Halfway through the sentence, like, oh, this is not the thing to say. But
damn it, Phil, you did it again.
Too late.
Quick, say the Vols are back. Respectfully, now I do mean respectfully, not respectively, but respectfully to Phil Fulmer, he did not seem to be very good in that position. He did not seem to be capable of doing the job of a major Power 5 university athletic director. Just the competency of that job seemed to elude him. Now it's not, because they did not hire Vitello under John Curry. John Curry hired Vitello.
Yeah, John Curry made that hire. Fulmer made the Kelly Harper hire.
Okay.
Women's basketball.
Which, substantial. And they are on track, it would seem, to kind of get back into the swing of things as far as women's college basketball is concerned. But yes, with Jeremy Pruitt having this hanging over his head now, and Tennessee, we spent that entire offseason, it felt like, talking about the fact that nobody was paying buyouts during the pandemic. And all of a sudden, Tennessee looked around and said, hey, we'll pay one. We'll get rid of this guy real quick.
Well, everybody was firing everybody.
Yeah, it really did happen in a flurry.
So many buyouts were paid, except Tennessee.
So, because fired with cause. Save a little money on the back end. Heady play. Even if you're leaking out there to Dan Patrick and people like Dan Patrick, the McDonald's bag, allegedly. Speculation, of course. Now, there are some people who viewed this story, giving this story new life, the Jeremy Pruitt storyline in the University of Tennessee's arc, and said, you know what? I think it's time to take a baseball bet to Vols fans yet again. I'm going to tell you, what are you laughing about already? I haven't even done the tease yet. You're laughing.
I'm just smiling. Can I smile?
You can smile. You can smile, and the audience will smile, because we're going to make fun of one of these dopes coming up next.
The Buck Rising Show was powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Did you say was? Or did you say is?
Is.
I heard was.
Should check that.
What are you trying to... You should check that.
No, you should get that checked. Your ears.
Well, yeah, I'm going deaf. I think that's just by nature of what we do for a living. The fact that I'm screaming in a room by myself, in a soundproof room by myself for 4 hours a day in some form or fashion, and much less having that refed back into my ears, it's probably not doing great things for my hearing. But, these are issues for another day. Speaking of issues, so we've talked about the 18 level 1 NCAA violations that came down on Friday, and we've been waiting for the shoe to drop for a hot second. Now, we knew that Jeremy Pruitt had some dirt, okay? We knew that it did not come to a great ending, that the University of Tennessee kind of got bailed out of I don't want to call him a loser, but he was not a successful coach by any stretch of the imagination. They got out of a losing contract situation by nature of being able to fire Jeremy Pruitt for cause. So this results, or this is inextricably linked to the thing known best as Schiano Sunday, which in 2017, after the firing of Butch Jones and the near hire of Greg Schiano, there was a Vol fan revolt, for lack of a better term. Is that a fair characterization?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they were marching on to Neyland Stadium, onto the Brenda Lawson Athletic Complex.
Right. So I just want to make sure that I'm being fair.
Yes.
So it was a fan revolt.
It was fans, media, politicians.
Yes.
Overwhelmingly.
So it was, and listen, the reasons for that, Greg Schiano's ties to Jerry Sandusky, I thought the connection was very loose, but here's my position on it. It is not my place to tell you who I think would be better for your football program than you would be able to discern for yourself. Not the Vols. Titans, I can do that. Tennessee is different. Now, not just because by nature of us not being, like, we don't live in Knoxville. I don't cover Tennessee football on a day-in, day-out basis the way that I'm paid to with the Titans. So it's a different conversation. We're reacting to stuff just as much as you guys are. And, hopefully with some informed opinions along the way. But with the Schiano Sunday situation, Jeremy Pruitt's hiring, it seemed like, okay, just get somebody. Just get somebody. Mike Leach is out here playing coy with us. Didn't they kind of flirt with Dave Doran at NC State for a hot second?
The Freedom of Information request showed that there was interest in Dave Doran, and then there was a lot of social media backlash when the rumors of Dave Doran coming out. Tennessee fans say, no, that's not who we want.
By the way, Dave Doran done really well at NC State, but a different question.
And then John Curry essentially stopped replying to Dave Doran as Doran's agent is frantically texting him saying, hey, what's going on? Are we going to do this? And then the Mike Leach was John Curry literally going rogue and MIA for hours. And just going to talk to Mike Leach on his own without any permission from his superiors.
So all of this spins out of control, and it's dubbed in Schiano Sunday, and then Jeremy Pruitt coming to East Tennessee. So you had people out here dragging Vols fans. Now, I will say that I did not agree with a lot of the behavior. I did not think that all of the reaction was justified. Some of it fair, some of it diplomatic, some of it very, very much not. But looking at Tennessee after the fact, I think it's a simple question with multiple layers to the conversation. Was Schiano Sunday worth it? 615-737-1045. Was Schiano Sunday worth it to the University of Tennessee long term? Having no idea how it was going to go, or what the trajectory of the Jeremy Pruitt regime would be and how it would fail and land in Josh Heupel, and now you're back to the good feels. You're riding high again, baby. You're feeling it. 98's right around the corner. We got it. 9 wins for the Vols this year, yeah? Second best team in the East. Georgia ain't got bleep. Okay. Was the Schiano stuff worth it in the long run? Because who is the greatest villain for Vols fans in the media. There's a couple. Now, you can look at villains in a couple of different ways. Clay Travis is probably regarded as a Tennessee media villain, even though he is not somebody who Tennessee fans object to, because Clay was at the center of a lot of this stuff. But as far as like people who cover the world of college football, who is regarded as the greatest of the Vol fan villains?
So you're talking about villains to the Tennessee fan base.
Like, who do they hate?
Yeah.
For the things that they have been written about Vol fan behavior, some of it earned, some of it not. I mean, you saw a little bit of this after the Ole Miss game. These things started to bubble back to the surface, right?
Yeah.
And you start to scratch that old persecution complex itch, which they do have. I love you. You're all crazy. You have this, very much so. Rightfully so. I don't think it's outright not justified or unjustified. But Dan Wolken is the name that comes to mind for me.
Yeah.
Like, Tennessee fans hate Dan Wolken.
And a lot of that because of what happened on Schiano Sunday. And the text that came out between him and John Curry.
Oh, God.
Well, it's between Dan Wolken and Pat Forty. I think with Pat Forty, there's been more of this long-standing tension between he and the Tennessee fan base. But there's no question that the Dan Wolken incident with John Curry on Schiano Sunday and the records request that showed that interaction, that made Wolken the guy for Tennessee fans to go at.
So Pat Forty wrote a column, and I listen. I like Pat Forty. He is one of the most respected names in college football. I say all this to say that this is one of the most misplaced and ill-timed columns that I think Pat has written. And it's not just because we work in the state of Tennessee, and the vast majority of you within the sound of my voice are Tennessee fans. But Forty's column, off of these 18 level 1 violations, Tennessee fans got their way. Now the chickens have fully come home to roost. The fan tantrum of 2017 led to the Vols' Jeremy Pruitt debacle, and a new notice of allegation reveals the full extent of the damage. So he talks about vigilante behavior and the charge to, quote, take back our program. He basically makes Schiano Sunday sound like the January 6th insurrection. Like, that's what he makes it sound like. Pat Forty is writing about Schiano Sunday with the seriousness of all of the things that you are seeing being covered right now in mainstream, in news regarding the United States government. Like that kind of stuff. Buddy, first of all, take a step back. Take back charge of our program. Vigilante behavior. While it may all well have been that, this is not quite the seriousness that you are taking, or the approach that you are taking does not require this degree of seriousness. Jesus.
Says at Miami Vice.
How successful was the vigilante charge to, quote, take back our program, resulting in the hiring of an empty suit athletic director, correct, John Curry, and a dim bulb coach, also correct.
He means he means Philip Fulmer. Resulting in the hiring of.
Fair enough, because Fulmer was the emergency Band-Aid to put over the Curry situation. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that correction. But also empty suit John Curry on the front end. Outside of Tony Vitello, which has worked out swimmingly. So shout out John Curry, who, by the way, is doing really well at Wake Forest.
Doing a fine job.
Really well at Wake Forest. Mm-hmm. Just wasn't great here. So empty suit athletic director, I don't think Phil Fulmer deserves that much credit with the athletic director jab. And I do not know, I cannot speak to Jeremy Pruitt's level of intelligence, but I would say that, yes, dim is just generally how I would describe the tenure of Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee. 5 years after the fact, Forty writes, to know that you greased the skids, he's talking to you, to know that you greased the skids for what now can definitively be called the worst football hire of the 21st century in the Southeastern Conference. Chad Morris, sir, would like a word. Chad Morris was a disaster at Arkansas. And yes, Chad Morris did not leave, as Pat correctly points out, because that's the big one that comes to mind, I think, in recent memory. Mm-hmm. Chad Morris at Arkansas, where they went, I think, 2 years without winning a conference game, at a program that has legitimate pride and has national championships in its history. Arkansas going 2 years without winning a conference game. Chad Morris did not leave Tennessee with the amount of legal and NCAA trouble that Jeremy Pruitt did. But there is no disputing that Pruitt's success on the field, and they'll vacate wins. It's safe to assume that, right? Like, they're going to take away wins from the Jeremy Pruitt era.
They could, yeah. You don't know what is going to come down. What you know it probably won't be is a postseason ban because the NCAA is moving away from that type of punishment. But I could imagine seeing wins vacated, a few more scholarship reductions, stuff like that.
So Pat Forty's hammering Tennessee fans over the head for all the ills that Schiano Sunday caused and Jeremy Pruitt is the result of, and this is the thing that lands in your lap. I think this is like, I understand now we have the punishment, so now they can actually talk about the full implications of this thing and how much further it could go. But I mean, does it not seem to you that this misses the mark because of the state of the football program as we sit here today?
It does feel like an article that Pat was itching to write, right?
Well, I mean, it's not his fault that it took until July 25th, right. 5 years after the fact, for him to finally be able to put the bow on the Schiano Sunday thing.
Well, and by the way, Mike Price was hired by Alabama in 2002 and got fired without coaching a game for being caught at a strip club in Pensacola and allegedly charging or paying a certain fee for an unknown woman to visit him in his room without coaching a game. So that certainly that's up there. But the great irony of this is saying, quote, it was even more costly than we thought, when it literally saved Tennessee $12 million.
No, it saved them money. Now, what the extent and what ends up being the actual harm of the NCAA violations, TBD, right? Because the world has changed since at least the college athletics world has changed.
Yeah.
Since Tennessee initially got in trouble and Jeremy Pruitt was fired for cause. Like the entire model of the sport shifted. The business model of the sport shifted.
But this would still be illegal. Like you still can't have coaches handing players $3,000 for a medical payment of a relative, which was in here.
Wife making car payments, back door under the table dealings like you knew was happening, but this is just, this is the clown car version.
But it's one of those things that nobody cares about anymore. Nobody cares about Chick-fil-A breakfast when somebody's getting $6 million in NIL money.
It's not necessarily, because obviously what Jeremy Pruitt did was wrong, and they weren't that good anyway as a result. Like for all of the cheating and all of the wrongdoing by Jeremy Pruitt behind the scenes, like they weren't that good. Which is the butt of the joke of all of this.
He was still a bad head football coach in the SEC. Like any amount of cheating wasn't going to change that.
He just bad at his job. Fire a D-line coach on the sidelines during the Kentucky game for what? For you to take over the D-line? You got it, bud. Figure it out. Cornbread. I wish the audio payoff on that was better. That's my only regret about the cornbread stuff. But it's the tone that I think. Even I again, zero allegiance to the University of Tennessee. Didn't go there, not from the state. Cover them, talk about them, watch them because I work here and live here. I take issue with the tone of this. Quote, this is from Forty's article. Good job, good effort. Talking to you. Talking to Lucas specifically. Good job, good effort. You listened to a fanboy media grifter's bright ideas on how to run a football program, which, by the way, I don't necessarily disagree with. If we're talking about the same fanboy media grifter that I think we are. You listen to a fanboy media grifter's bright ideas on how to run a football program, and this is where it leads you 5 years later. 5 years later, we're talking about them being the second best team in the East. What is it? The tone is off.
Yeah.
The tone is off. It is unnecessarily chastising. And the job of a columnist, like Pat Forty's a columnist. It is his purpose to have an opinion. Pat Forty is not a reporter. There is reporting in columns, but he is not an objective. All right, here are the facts. Let me give you the information as it becomes available to me. It is his job to find those things, but also to formulate an opinion based on how he feels and what the information that he gets.
Which is where some Tennessee fans do miss the mark when going at him.
Correct.
Where they're saying, look at you, supposed to be an unbiased reporter. Like, no. It's literally his job to be biased in one way or another.
That's just a fundamental misunderstanding of that. That's like, I mean, honestly, like I'm kind of a good example of this just because there's so many blurred lines about what it is that I do for a living and how many different outlets on how many different platforms, right? You're pitching me as a reporter, but I'm also a talk show host that is largely driven off opinion and a streaming show that is largely driven off opinion. And this I almost cussed, but the stuff that I write is largely driven off opinion. It's more column than anything. So am I really a reporter in the sense of the word? Probably not. You disrupted the attempted hire of Greg Schiano. The obsession with Schiano, though. I'll get back to that. You disrupted the attempted hire of Greg Schiano. trumping up a dishonest moral outrage. The real issue was whether Schiano could win in the SEC, not that he knew or didn't know about the monster Jerry Sandusky was while on the staff at Penn State. You get your way, which only adds to the power trip. Which, by the way, should it not be their decision? That's my thing at all of this. Why are we... And listen, Greg Schiano is regarded as a fine football coach. He has done a great job with Rutgers the first time around, and we'll see how the second... It seems like there was at least a path forward for Greg Schiano in the second iteration at Rutgers.
8-14 in his first 2 years.
All right, maybe I'm being generous. Or maybe they're just getting banged because they're playing in the Big Ten now. A conversation for another day. The obsession with Greg Schiano, like you can't find another Greg Schiano, respectfully to Greg, but also the power trip of the fan base. The fan base is what makes the fan base and the pride in what, the colors and the logo and the football team and Smokey and all the glitz and, all the fireworks, all the different, whatever. Power T running through the power T, the whole thing. All of that is derived off the fan base. Should that not then be the fan base's charge if they want to kind of flex their muscle a little bit? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Philip Fulmer was put in a position of power to make decisions. And you know what? He's terrible at it. Terrible. So who am I to say? Who am I to sit here and tell Vols fans that because just because somebody like Philip Fulmer couldn't do it when he's regarded as somebody who's got some of the best institutional knowledge of the university, that, yeah, you couldn't make a better decision, because you could. Because there was all kinds of missteps all over the place with how this thing got mangled. And by the way, Phil Fulmer gets out the best on all of this stuff. He gets to still be Phil Fulmer. He gets to still have the love of a certain segment of the Tennessee population outside of the Johnny Majors people who will never forgive him. And he doesn't get tied up in all of this. He got to walk 3 days after they relieved Jeremy Pruitt of his duties. I don't know why people insist on going after Tennessee fans. Like, maybe it's just the timing. Maybe that's Pat's greatest sin here, is that this is the time when the news came down. This is the column that he had written or was ready to write for the circumstance, because it is news, and Pat covered Schiano Sunday. But if you want it to resonate with people, the people who it matters the most to, Tennessee fans, I thought the approach was poor.
Yeah, it's like he put it out without reading into the notice of allegations. And I'm sure he did, but he puts it out without acknowledging that Tennessee separated themselves from Pruitt and that staff, to where the punishment mostly is going to come to those guys individually, and that the program isn't really going to feel the brunt end of this. And it's like he's scolding Tennessee fans as if they were a dog that, snatched some food off of a plate and is clearly ashamed as you're telling it not to do that. But every Tennessee fan's looking around like, what are you talking about? It worked. It literally worked. That incident in 2017, Schiano Sunday, accomplished what Tennessee fans wanted from it, in that it hit the reset button on the program. In a roundabout way, they had to hit rock bottom with Pruitt and Fulmer first to bounce back. But if 5 years ago, if you showed Tennessee fans a picture of what the program looks like right now and its trajectory, and you said, you got to go through these depths first of Pruitt and Fulmer, got to go in the tank a little bit first, everybody would have taken it. Every single person would have said, yes, let's proceed, over a stagnant situation with John Currie as AD and Greg Schiano as head coach.
615-737-1045 is how you jump in. The column goes on. Pruitt didn't just, by the way, this is, you can read this thing in its full extent. And I do think it's worth reading, and you can formulate your own opinion off this. You don't have to just take my word for it. This is how I received the column of Pat Forty on this particular topic, and I thought he missed the mark. But he goes on to write, Pruitt didn't just fail to monitor a rogue assistant coach or a stray bag man. He allegedly was the bag man in at least a couple of instances. That's the thing.
Yeah,
that's the thing, because he's not just a dope for putting the gator on over his head like he's ET with the hood on. You know what I'm saying? Like during when they had to wear the masks on the sidelines for COVID, and him pulling this thing over his head like a sock.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just that he looks like a dope, it's that he was it's I've made several comparisons to the drug dealing world and college athletics. And the one rule, not that I know this from personal experience, just because I just went on a wire binge here recently, you don't touch the drugs. You don't handle the drugs. Jeremy Pruitt, if you do one thing, do not yourself personally handle the money. Don't get caught on the wiretaps. Don't touch the cash. You goober.
Yeah, and hotel rooms booked in his wife's name. Yeah, very, very sloppy.
Because my thing is, I don't care if these people cheat. Matters none to me. Absolutely none. We've gotten yelled at, or I've gotten, I don't want to lump you in with me on this, but I've gotten yelled at before because I said I don't care about sportsmanship. I care about the entertainment. Entertain me. The sportsmanship, cheating, all of it, it's a part of the game. Play the game however you want to play the game, and if you get bit in the butt by the consequences, okay, great. At least it was fun while we got there.
Well, and if Jeremy Pruitt's cranking out 10-win seasons at Tennessee,
nobody cares.
He's still the head coach.
Nobody cares.
Right.
Yeah. It's a complete, we regard because if he was cheating and he was good at it, it was like, okay, you know, you can eat that. You could live with that. And it's that they were cheating and they sucked.
If the NCAA comes down with very light punishment on Tennessee, which I think is what they are expected to do, with the majority of the punishment going to the individuals. Pruitt might get a 12-year show cause, right? But Tennessee probably is not really going to see the harsh end of this. If that happens and the NCAA gives schools incentive to cooperate, like they said Tennessee did, they say this is the standard of how schools should cooperate with investigations. So if that happens, I wonder how often we might see this, where things are going down the tank. I mean, you kind of saw a version of it with Auburn. Things are going.
Auburn's what it looks like when it gets more messy.
Yeah. I mean, you saw it with Kansas, with the coach they fired a few years ago. Things are not going well. Let's try to find a reason to fire him with cause. Luckily for Tennessee, Jeremy Pruitt gave them plenty of reasons to very easily find to fire him with cause. It saved them $12 million to see that they were losing. Say, NCAA, hey, over here, these guys over here. We just found out about it. Just want to let you know it's these guys over here. We're going
to self-incriminate. Yep. Phil's going to retire off into the sunset.
Cutting ties with all of them.
Everybody's getting swept out.
Everybody's getting replaced. Coach, AD, players, everybody is out of here. I just wonder how much more we see stuff like that because
plenty.
Pat Forty says we couldn't imagine it being this costly when it literally saved the school $12 million.
That's so enough with the Pat Forty thing. 615-737-1045. Last call for phone calls coming up next, and we'll update some polls, get you out of here for our segment of the programming on a Monday. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Wrapping up on a Monday for us anyway. If you missed any of the radio show, whether it's Alex Daugherty or David Boclair in remembrance of Mark Howard, who we lost yesterday, that is available to you via the podcast. I would also invite, and I know that Blaine and Mickey, and I know that it's Alex Apple, because Blaine's out all week, right?
Correct, and it was his birthday yesterday.
Well, let's go ahead and wish Blaine a happy birthday, shall we?
Happy birthday to him. I don't care. Good luck.
That's such a ridiculous thing.
I think it's my favorite sound on this board. The Blaine Bishop breaking news sounder.
I would listen. I am completely fine to now. I don't want to steal their thing because that's obviously their thing. But I would be completely fine if you replace the obnoxious laser light show sound for breaking news. Can I hear them? Can I hear them next to each other? Give me the one that I hate first.
Breaking sports news on 104.5 The Zone.
Oh, that's what I need to start doing.
Just play it.
Yeah. Open with the big voice guy and then fade out with Blaine.
Oh no. I want the laser light show guy to just get out of here. That's every time. It kills me. Quickly though, before we wrap things up with the polls, speaking of Jason and Ramon, you should go check out the podcast because they did an exceptional job honoring the memory of Mark Howard today. Any longtime zone, Ramon was out this week, but Jason and Schaefer did an exceptional job honoring the memory of Mark Howard. So for any longtime zone listener or anybody who just wants to learn about the history of it the way that I wanted to, because I don't have that depth of knowledge, and unfortunately I did not know Mark. I think Wake Up Zone was over by the time I got here. I think that's right, because they were done in 2020, and I got hired in March of 21. And even when I first moved here, I was working overnights, so I was asleep right when the Wake Up Zone started. I was getting into bed at 6 a.m. But anyway, quickly, a reminder, 104.5 The Zone is excited to present the first For the Fam Hangout. So Jason and Ramon, they're having a get-together like we did with the bowling event. I don't know whether we were not invited to this yet. Perhaps we start show feud.
I don't know. Do you want to leave in the middle of a Titans preseason game?
Oh, no, I'm going to be in Baltimore.
Okay.
So they're going to be hanging out at Bold Patriot Brewing inside the L&O Market off Charlotte Avenue. I've not been to Bold Patriot Brewing, but L&O Market's really cool. So yeah, go hang out with Jason and Ramon and I assume Schaefer for the Titans and Ravens preseason game, Thursday, August the 11th. Craft beer from Bold Patriot and food by O'Charlie's. For more information, visit 1045thezone.com/events today. Polls.
Not now, Jenny. I'm on the radio. Buck Rising gave me a job. Said something about a poll update. Hope that wasn't at that club where you became a folk singer. Anyway, Buck Rising's producer and correspondent has the final poll update. I'm not a smart man, but I know who Lucas Panzica is.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford. You can custom order any new Ford from Two Rivers. They will deliver it to you when it's manufactured. Who has more to prove in Titans training camp? Now, I made a mistake. I did not put Treylon Burks' name in here. I instead put Robert Wood's name by accident next to Caleb Farley. So 92% say Caleb Farley has more to prove than Robert Woods. It's too bad because I'm curious as to what the projections would have been if I had put in Treylon Burks.
If you had done it correctly, yes. I too would like to know what the results would have been had we done our jobs correctly.
I guess we'll never know.
Meanwhile, the porn spam is back in the YouTube chat. Love that for us.
Who is the best wide receiver in the AFC South? 42% say it's Woods, 33% say it's Brandon Cooks, 22% say it's Michael Pittman, and 3% say Christian Kirk.
Yes, the correct answer is Brandon Cooks. You homers who all voted for Robert Woods. I like Robert Woods. I think Robert Woods is going to be a fine player. In fact, I think you're going to need to lean on him heavily in the coming months. But I would say to you that Brandon Cooks, over the course of his career, 8 years in the league, 6,000-yard receiving, 6,000-yard seasons, and Robert Woods only having 2 as a second fiddle in every stop that he has been in prior to Tennessee, I would say to you that Brandon Cooks has been the superior talent and is the superior talent at this point, even though Cooks has had a lot of concussion stuff.
What's the most compelling training camp storyline in the NFL outside of the Titans? Crazy Pellet says the Steelers, after Big Ben and the addition of Brian Flores to the defensive coaching staff. Tomlin's one of the best coaches in the league. I think he's going to show why this year.
He's never had a losing season. So I find that compelling. Yeah. Now, the quarterback competition of Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and I think Mason Rudolph is still there.
Yep.
Mason Rudolph is a second-round draft pick.
Making a good living.
Great. Yeah, that's fair.
Goody says, if you made 220 by training camp, Lucas should have a scale for the official weigh-in.
I'm bringing my scale on Wednesday to the show. We're going to be on camera. You're going to be with me at training camp.
I will, yes.
So now I'm not going to strip down. I'm not going to do Underwear Olympics at training camp. So I need at least 3 pounds of grace for clothes and shoes.
Does Nino Niederreiter make the Preds a contender? 64% say no.
Contender, yes. I don't know. I mean, they're not favorites by any stretch of the imagination, but they are a more competitive roster than when the season ended, which, by the way, is a question that I still have about the Titans. I don't know that to be so.
Which media member hates the Vols more? Dan Wolken, Pat Forty, or Joel Klatt? 60% say Wolken, 27% say Forty, 13% say Klatt. Wolken remains the villain of all villains.
Yeah, I think he wins that. What's Joel Klatt's deal? Why does he hate Tennessee?
He went at Tennessee fans pretty hard for Schiano Sunday, and I think it was something along the lines of on Colin Cowherd's show, you don't deserve who you want. You don't deserve a winning program, something like that. I'm paraphrasing. Are you disappointed that Jeremy Pruitt's McDonald's bags did not actually have money in them? 85% say yes.
That's the biggest tragedy in all of this. Not 18 level 1 NCAA violations, not Jeremy Pruitt, the dopey bag man, that there was actually that there were McDonald's bags, but there was actual food in the McDonald's bags as opposed to cash.
What's funny is that it literally would have been smarter to give McDonald's bags full of unmarked cash rather than paying for money under your name on a credit card.
Yeah, that's correct.
Vols fans, was Schiano Sunday worth it? 74% say yes.
I mean, you can't argue with the results. You're in a better spot now than you were then, even if the path to get there was deeply unpleasant for a couple of years as you kind of worked your way through this thing. Well done. Those are the polls?
Those are the polls.
That is the show. We will get into some training camp stuff tonight on A to Z Sports Primetime. I hope to see you guys there at 8 p.m. Blaine and Mickey with Alex Apple and 3HL up after that. They're going to continue to remember the memory of their great friend and coworker Mark Howard today, as J Mart and Ramon did this morning. We are appreciative for you guys hanging out with us here today, and we will do it again if I don't see you on Primetime tonight at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning here on 104.5 The Zone.